think I'm backwards. I might be backwards. Okay, that didn't work. I think I'm right side up. I was trying to do this horizontally, and for some reason I can't get it right. I don't think I can do it. Okay, so I'll be vertical. So this is a bit of an experiment. This is my weekly Parsha reading, which I'm late for this week because I've been doing them on Sundays, which is when I read the full Parsha in English for myself, for my own learning. And thereafter, every day, I'll read the Aliyah of the day in Hebrew. So that's been my practice. And I've been sharing on this channel my weekly readings in English once a week on Sundays. And it's been since Parashat Shemot, I think, is when I started. And I've been staying on track, except yesterday, since we are now on the book of Shemot, because we just finished Bereshit, I have this nice Gutnick edition Chumash set where each of the 5 books is in its own volume. And what I did was actually grabbed Devarim from my office and I left the rest of the set there. So I came home, realized I had Devarim, and basically I switched to the Stone edition, which is the Art Scroll different Chumash set. And I started reading from that because I didn't want to go back to the office. And then I realized that the translation is just inconsistent and I really enjoyed this Gutnick edition. So I just wasn't really feeling it and decided to just delay it a little bit. So today I'm sharing my Parsha reading a day late, but I think it's still okay. And since I'm a little bit behind already on schedule, I figured I would do a bit of an experiment and do this on live stream instead of my edited version. So one, I'm curious to see how this might reach different people, because I think when I live stream, YouTube shares this with kind of a totally different audience. And secondly, maybe it'll just spare me some time on editing. With the weekly Parsha readings, I really wanted to have like something a little bit more high quality. I was trying to have better audio, but it's honestly a little bit time consuming. So if this works out and people still find this helpful afterwards, perhaps I'll continue with the live stream version. If not, we'll just call this a special edition for today. Yesterday I was like, aside from even just picking up the wrong Sepharim, like I was just like really discombobulated. Like I had a really weird, crazy day. And like I dropped something on my head, like I broke something, like it was just kind of one of those messy days. So it just wasn't in the cards for me to do this reading yesterday. So that being said, I want to say that when I do these readings, sometimes the pronunciation is hard, or I'll just like, I don't know, pause or something. So I do like a decent amount of editing. So I hope that this reading will be smooth enough for you guys. Especially for people who are finding this after the fact and not really joining for it live. So anyway, let me know in the comments if you are somebody who's been watching these on a weekly basis, which thank you very much if you have. Let me know how this feels to you in comparison to the actually properly edited versions, which I'll assume will be much nicer because the audio is much cleaner. So anyway, getting into this, I've been also sharing little tidbits of either Orat HaTorah by Rav Kook or just different little things I've picked up that I want to share with you guys before I start the reading. And since we're on a brand new, fresh book of Shemot, I actually wanted to talk about or read this little blip in the beginning on the name of the Parsha, which is really nice as I read it. So it says, the word Shemot means names, as in the verse, these are the names of the children of Israel who came to Egypt. A person's name is an extremely personal matter. Whenever a person hears his name called out, the word resonates in his heart and lifts his spirits. People feel so strongly for their names that they will pay fortunes to have their names written on buildings, as they yearn for their identity to be perpetuated in stone. In fact, a name is such a deep-rooted entity that if a person faints, God forbid, whispering his name into his ear can actually bring him back to consciousness. This is the inner significance of a name. Superficially, however, a name does not express a person's unique essential qualities at all. In fact, many different people possess exactly the same name. A name thus expresses somewhat of a paradox. On the surface, a name tells you nothing about a person, and yet on probing deeper, it is a word that represents a person's total uniqueness. And it is precisely for this reason, the paradoxical quality of a name, that this Parsha is called Names. The paradox in our Parsha is that we read here of a moment of gloom for the Jewish people. They descend into exile, they're enslaved, and when a glimmer of hope appears on the horizon, when Moshe comes to redeem the Jewish people, the immediate result is that things get worse. And yet, on the other hand, the Midrash states that the key theme of our Parsha is redemption. But that is why the Parsha is called Names, for a name is also a paradox, precisely the same type of paradox which we witness in this Parsha. For just as a name is, superficially, a concealment of a person's true identity, for so many other different people share the same name, and yet deep down a person feels that his name represents his total uniqueness. So too, Parashat Shemot is superficially a concealment of the Jewish spirit, but deep down that spirit always remains intact and alive. And that's based on Sichat Shabbat Parashat Shemot from the year 5746. Hi, Carl. Hi, Lamer. Okay, so by the way, on that, I'm always fascinated by names, and I actually think that a name does represent somebody's total essence and uniqueness. And you might have like many people named Sarah or David, like certain names that are pretty common, but I think it's the uniqueness of that person's combination of names. So when you have your first name, your middle name, your last name, your Hebrew name, and the essence of that recipe, I think really speaks to somebody's uniqueness. So yeah, just wanted to say that. I love names. I just love names. I think they're fascinating. All right, so Parashat Shemot. These are the names of the children of Israel who came to Egypt with Yaakov. Each man came with his household: Reuven, Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda, Issachar, Zebulun, and Binyamin, Dan and Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. All the people who emerged from Yaakov's loins were 70 souls, and Yosef was in Egypt. Yosef died as well as all his brothers and all of that generation. The children of Israel were fruitful and swarmed and increased and became extremely strong. The land became filled with them. A new king arose over Egypt who did not know Yosef. He said to his people, "Look, the nation of Israel's descendants are more numerous and stronger than we. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, lest they increase. For if a war will occur, they will join our enemies, fight against us, and depart from the land." So they appointed over them their tax collectors to afflict them with their burdens, and the Jewish people built storage cities for Pharaoh, namely Pithom and Ramses. But as much as they would set their hearts to afflict them, so did they multiply, and so did they spread. The Egyptians were disgusted because of the children of Israel. The Egyptians enslaved the children of Israel with crushing labor. They embittered their lives with hard labor, with mortar and with bricks, and with all kinds of labor in the fields. All their work that they made them do was crushing labor. The king of Egypt spoke to the Hebrew midwives, one whom was named Shiphrah, and the second whose name was Puah. He said, "When you help the Hebrew women give birth, and you look on the birth stool, if it is a son, you shall put him to death, but if it is a daughter, she may live." The midwives, however, feared God, and they did not do what the king of Egypt had told them. They kept the boys alive. The king of Egypt summoned the midwives and said to them, "Why have you done this thing, that you have let the boys live?" The midwives said to Pharaoh, "Because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women, for they are skilled as midwives. Before the midwife comes to them, they have already given birth." God was good to the midwives, and the people multiplied and became very strong. It was because the midwives feared God that he made houses, family lines for them. Pharaoh commanded all his people, saying, Every son who is born you shall cast into the Nile, and every daughter you shall allow to live." A man of the house of Levi went and remarried a daughter of Levi. The woman became pregnant, and she gave birth to a son. She saw that he was good, and she hid him for 3 months. She could no longer hide him, so she took for him a reed basket, smeared it with clay and tar, put the child into it, and placed it amongst the reeds at the Nile's edge. His sister stood from afar in order to know what would happen to him. Pharaoh's daughter went down to bathe in the Nile, and her maidens were walking along the Nile. And she saw the basket among the reeds, and she sent her maidservant, and she took it. She opened it and saw him and the child, and look, a youth was crying. She had compassion on him, and she said, "This is one of the Hebrew boys." Moshe's sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, Shall I go and call for you a wet nurse from the Hebrew women to nurse a child for you? Pharaoh's daughter said to her, Go. So the girl went and called the child's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, Take this child and nurse him for me, and I will give you your wages. So the woman took the boy and nursed him. The child grew up, and she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became like her son. She named him Moshe, and she said, For I drew him from the water. It was in those days that Moshe grew up, and he went out to his brothers, and he saw their burdens. He saw an Egyptian man striking a Hebrew man, one of his brothers. He turned this way and that way, and he saw that no man was there, so he struck the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. He went out on the second day, and look, 2 Hebrew men were quarreling. He said to the wicked one, Why would you strike your friend? He replied, Who made you a man, a prince, and a judge over us? Did you plan to slay me as you have slain the Egyptian? Moshe became frightened and said, Indeed, the matter has been known. Pharaoh heard of this incident, and he attempted to kill Moshe. Moshe fled from Pharaoh, and he settled in the land of Midian. He sat down by the well. The governor of Midian had 7 daughters. They came and drew water, and they filled troughs to water their father's flock. But the shepherds came and drove them away. Moshe got up and rescued them and watered their flock. They came to their father Reuel. He said, Why have you come so quickly today? They said, An Egyptian man rescued us from the hands of the shepherds, and he also drew water for us and watered the flock. He said to his daughters, So where is he? Why have you left the man? Invite him and let him eat bread. Moshe agreed to live with the man, and the man gave his daughter Zipporah to Moshe. She bore a son, whom he named Gershom, for he said, I was a stranger, ger, in a foreign land. After many days had passed, the king of Egypt died. The children of Israel groaned from the hard work, and they cried out. Their cries, caused by the hard work, went up to God. God heard their cry, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Yitzchak, and with Yaakov. God saw the children of Israel, and God knew. He took their cries to their heart. Moshe was pasturing the flocks of Yitro, his father-in-law, the governor of Midian. He led the flocks into the desert, and he came to the mountain of God at Horeb. An angel of God appeared to him in a flame of fire from within the thorn bush. Moshe gazed, and look, the thorn bush was burning with fire, but the thorn bush was not being consumed. Moshe said, Let me turn now and see this great spectacle. Why will the thorn bush not burn? God saw that he had turned to see, and God called to him from within the thorn bush, and he said, Moshe, Moshe, he said, Here I am. God said, Do not draw near. Take your shoes off your feet, because the place upon which you stand is holy soil. He said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Yitzchak, and the God of Yaakov. Moshe hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. God said, I have truly seen the suffering of my nation which is in Egypt, and I have heard its cries caused by its slave drivers, for I know its pains. I shall descend to rescue it from the hands of the Egyptians, and to bring it up from that land, to a good and spacious land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hittites, and the Jebusites. Now behold, the cry of the children of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression with which the Egyptians are persecuting them. Now go, and I will send you to Pharaoh, and you will take my nation, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. Moshe said to God, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh, and that I should take the children of Israel out of Egypt? He said, For I will be with you, and this burning thorn bush is a sign for you that you have been sent by me, and that you will succeed. When you take the people out of Egypt, you will worship God on this mountain. Moshe said to God, When I come to the children of Israel, and I say to them, The God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they say to me, What is his name? What shall I say to them? God said to Moshe, Eyeh asher eyeh. Literally, I will be what I will be. And he said, So shall you say to the children of Israel, Eyeh, I will be, has sent me to you. God also said to Moshe, So shall you say to the children of Israel, God, the God of your forefathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Yitzchak, and the God of Yaakov has sent me to you. This is my eternal name, and this is how I should be recalled in every generation. Go and assemble the elders of Israel and say to them, God, the God of your forefathers, has appeared to me, the God of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, saying, I have truly remembered you and what is being done to you in Egypt. I have said, I will bring you out from the affliction of Egypt to the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, to a land flowing with milk and honey. They will listen to your voice. You and the elders of Israel shall come to the king of Egypt and say to him, God, the God of the Hebrews, has come upon us. Now let us go for a 3-day journey in the desert and offer up sacrifices to God, our God. I already know that the king of Egypt will not permit you to go, unless I show him a mighty hand. So I will send forth my hand, and I will smite the Egyptians with all my miracles, which I will perform inside their land. Afterwards he will send you out. I shall grant this people favor in the eyes of the Egyptians, so that when you eventually leave, you will not go empty-handed. Each woman shall request from her neighbor and from a woman living in her house silver and gold objects and clothing. You shall put them on your sons and on your daughters, and you shall empty Egypt of all of its wealth. Moshe responded and said, They will not believe me, and they will not listen to my voice, for they will say, God did not appear to you. God said to him, What is this in your hand? Moshe said, A staff. God said, Cast it to the ground. And he cast it to the ground, and it became a serpent. And Moshe ran away from it. God said to Moshe, Stretch out your hand and take hold of its tail. Moshe stretched out his hand and grasped it, and it became a staff in his palm. This is in order that they believe that God, the God of their forefathers, has appeared to you, the God of Abraham, the God of Yitzchak, and the God of Yaakov. God then said to him, Please place your hand on your chest. Moshe placed his hand on his chest. He then removed it, and his hand was leprous like snow. God said, Place your hand back on your chest. Moshe placed his hand back on his chest, and when he took it out from his chest, it had to return to be like his flesh. Then if they do not believe you, and they do not heed the voice of the first sign, they will believe the voice of the latter sign. And then if they do not believe either of these two signs, and they do not listen to your voice, you shall take some water from the Nile and spill it on the ground. The water that you take from the Nile will become blood on the ground. Moshe said to God, I beg of you, my master, I am not a man of words, not yesterday, nor the day before, not from the very first time that you spoke to your servant, for I am of heavy mouth and heavy tongue. God said to him, Who gave man a mouth, or who makes a person dumb or deaf, sighted or blind? Is it not I, God? So now go. I will be with your mouth, and I will teach you what you should say. But Moshe said, Please, my master, send the one that you usually send, Aaron. Alternatively is the translation, send the one that you will eventually send, i.e. Mashiach. God became angry with Moshe, and he said, I know that Aaron, your brother, the Levite, will surely speak for you. When you return to Egypt, you will find that he comes to greet you, and when he sees you, he will rejoice in his heart. You will speak to him and put the words in his mouth. I will then be with your mouth and with his mouth, and I will instruct both of you what you shall do. He will speak on your behalf to all the people. He will be your spokesman, and you will be his leader. You shall take his staff in your hand, with which you will perform the signs. Moshe went and returned to Yethro, his father-in-law, and he said to him, Let me go now and return to my brothers who are in Egypt, and let me see whether they are still alive. Yethro said to Moshe, Go in peace. God said to Moshe in Midian, Go, return to Egypt, for all the people who seek your life have died. Moshe took his wife and his sons, mounted them upon the famous donkey, and returned to the land of Egypt. Moshe took the staff of God in his hand. God said to Moshe, When you go to return to Egypt, reflect upon all the miracles that I have placed in your hand and perform them before Pharaoh. I will, however, strengthen his heart, and he will not send the people away. You shall say to Pharaoh, This is what God said, Israel is my son, my firstborn. Therefore, I say to you, send out my son so that he may worship me. If you refuse to send him out, I am going to slay your firstborn son. At an inn on the way, an angel of God met him and wanted to kill him. So Zipporah took a sharp stone, cut off her son's foreskin, and threw it at Moshe's feet. And she said to her son, You are my husband's attempted killer. When the angel, released him, she said, My husband would have been killed because of the matter of circumcision. God said to Aaron, Go to greet Moshe in the desert. He went to meet him at the mountain of God, and he kissed him. Moshe told Aaron all the words of God with which he had sent him, and all the signs that he had commanded him. Moshe and Aaron went, and they assembled all the elders of the children of Israel. Aaron spoke all the words that God had spoken to Moshe, and he performed the signs before the eyes of the people. And the people believed. They heard that God had remembered the children of Israel, and that he had seen their affliction. They bowed and prostrated themselves on the ground. Afterwards, Moshe and Aaron came and said to Pharaoh, This is what God, the God of Israel, said, Send out my nation, and let them sacrifice to me in the desert. Pharaoh said, Who is God that I should listen to his voice and let Israel out? I do not know of God, nor will I let Israel out. They said, The God of the Hebrews has come upon us. Now let us go on a 3-day journey into the desert, and we will sacrifice to God, our God. Otherwise, he may strike us. A polite way of saying you, with a plague or with a sword. The king of Egypt said to them, Why, Moshe and Aaron, do you disturb the people from their work? Go and deal with your own burdens. Pharaoh said, The people of the land are now numerous, and you are suggesting that they rest from their work. On that day, Pharaoh commanded the Egyptian taskmasters of the people and their Jewish guards, saying, You shall not continue to give straw to the people to make the bricks like yesterday and the day before. Let them go and gather straw from themselves. You shall impose upon them the same number of bricks that they have been making yesterday and the day before. Do not reduce it, for they're becoming lazy, and that is why they cry out, saying, Let us go and sacrifice to our God. Let the labor fall heavily upon the men, and let them work at it, and let them not talk about pointless matters. The taskmasters of the people and their guards went out to the people, saying, Pharaoh said, I am not giving you straw. You must go and obtain straw for yourselves from wherever you can find it, because nothing can be reduced from your workload. The people spread out throughout the entire land of Egypt to gather grain stalks for straw. The taskmasters were pressing them, saying, Finish your work, each day's amount in its day, just as when there was straw. The guards of the children of Israel, whom Pharaoh's taskmasters had appointed, were beaten. They were told, Why have you not completed your requirement to make bricks like the day before yesterday, neither yesterday nor today? The guards of the children of Israel came and cried out to Pharaoh, saying, Why do you do this to your servants? Straw is not given to your servants, but they still tell us, Make bricks. Your servants are being beaten, and it is bringing sin upon your people. He said, You are lazy, simply lazy. That is why you say, Let us go, let us sacrifice to God. Now go and work, but you will not be given straw. Nevertheless, you must produce the same number of bricks. The officers of the children of Israel saw them in distress when they said, Do not reduce the number of your bricks, each day's requirement in its day. When they came out from Pharaoh's presence, a group of Jewish people met Moshe and Aaron waiting to meet them. They said to Moshe and Aaron, May God look upon you and judge, for you have made our scent abhorrent in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of his servants. You have placed a sword into their hands to kill us. Moshe returned to God and said, O God, why have you mistreated this people? Why have you sent me? Since I have come to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has mistreated his people. He has mistreated this people, and you have not saved your people. God said to Moshe, Now you will see what I will do to Pharaoh, for with a mighty hand he will send them out, and with a mighty hand he will drive them out of his land. And that's it. Parashat Shemot. And I'm very glad I stuck with this translation. I really enjoy this one. So thank you for sticking with me. I'll be very interested to see if this works out decently compared to the edited version, because it'll save me some time and it'll be nice. But I'm happy to do the more produced, recorded, edited version with a nice microphone if it's that much more pleasant. So I'll appreciate it, especially for people who are following along week by week. If you do, just let me know if you have like a preference for one over the other. Let me just catch up on messages. Hi, Howling Wolf, Zev, Lata, Anusha, Buenos dias, no importa. Yeah, I set up my jewelry stuff. It's kind of all scattered about, but this is sort of my spot for now. Let's see, whoops. Is this the first time we got you reading the Parsha live? Yeah. Oh, so to just show you, because people have asked, it's this. This is a Chabad translation and commentary, and it's not just a commentary, like the actual, I don't know if you noticed, and I kind of like flipped and said, like that line where they say, i.e. Mashiach, like within the actual translation of the text itself, not just a commentary, I feel like the translation is very much infused. So there's like a very strong Chabad-esque influence in this translation, but I really love it. I love all the little notes and the commentary that are in here, and I highly recommend this Chumash. Before this, I was reading from the Stone Edition, just Art Scroll Chumash for most of the time, and I recently just switched back to this, starting with Bereshit this year. So I've been really, really loving it. Thanks, Lamer. It says, well done, that was good. Awesome. Well, thank you. I'm just going to cut it short. I've been just kind of busy lately, doing a lot of different stuff, so I haven't been, I was kind of on a kick there, streaming a lot more frequently recently. And then, I don't know, I guess it was like Hanukkah the last time I streamed. So I will, who is a publisher? I think it's a good question. Published and distributed by Kol Menachem from Brooklyn. KolMenachem.com. But it's on, you can find this on Amazon if you just write the Gutnick edition, Gutnick. And I think like most places carry it, so really like it. I recommend the book Sefer HaYashar. I don't know what that is. That's an interesting one. I'll look that up. All right, cool. So I'm just going to move on with my day. I have to do some errands and get back to the office. And I hope you guys have a lovely day, a beautiful week. And yeah, Shabbat Tov. Bye-bye.